and it like covers the rest of your
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday, February 24th, Public Safety Committee. We'll try that again. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to today's Public Safety Committee meeting. It is Tuesday, February 24th at 1 p.m. and we are calling this meeting to order. We don't have any changes to the agenda, and we have quite a few folks that came to do public comment. Here's the rules for speaking under privilege of the floor. I agree to a 3-minute time limit. I agree not to raise my voice. I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of peace. I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. After 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. I agree to be courteous and not make comments, gestures, outbursts, or other disruptions while other members of the public or legislators are speaking. I agree that if I cause a disruption and I am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. We have quite a few speakers this afternoon, which is very, very good. And we have a packed agenda, so I'm going to keep things moving along as brisk as possible. I want to call Carrie Ann, is that how you pronounce it, to the microphone to get us started. You have 3 minutes.
Is this the right place to speak?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. My name is Reverend Carrie Ann Weaver. I'm the pastor of the church right next door, the Presbyterian Church. As a church, we're the housing home of Open Doors English, the Immigrant Solidarity Group, Ithaca Welcomes Refugees, several anonymous groups, and other groups that meet for support. And I'm here to speak in favor of disconnecting flock cameras and discontinuing our contracts with flock. There are a lot of pros and cons to these cameras, I understand, and most of them hinge upon the safety of our data and our ability to restrict the use of it. The greatest vulnerability of all of these attempts to limit data sharing is in the case of warrants and subpoenas. And these are all handled by flock at a national level, by the company itself, so that we would never even be aware of what had taken place if there were a warrant or subpoena out for that data. I don't want to stand between evidence and a warrant, and I think probably none of you want to either, nor would we ever be given the chance. But I think that's why the only safe option for us as a community, and probably for New York State and for citizens as a whole, is not to have the evidence exist, not to have that data exist so that it can be abused and used against people by vindictive and retributional people. We should disable the cameras now, and we should end our contracts for the future. Thank you.
Up next, we have Katie.
Hi, my name is Katie Church. I live on West Court Street in Mr. Brooks's district. Let's see, I'm also here to speak against continuing our contract with flock. I do want predatory individuals who inflict harm on our community, first, not to do it, and second, to be stopped and not allowed to do it again if they do. Most importantly to me is that they don't do it to start with. If I go to mobile, that business has a sign saying I'm on camera. That method has been shown to deter crime. Flock cameras are secret. They're hidden. The cops don't even share their locations. We know where they are because community members have mapped them and shared that map. How do hidden cameras stop criminals from committing crimes? They don't. And they don't even do a super awesome job at solving them. So if they don't stop crime from happening and only sort of help catch criminals after the fact, are they worth our community being an open data door to whomever wants to profit off of us? Our contract with Flock is an open data door. None of us is protected against that. I know Mr. Osborne has tried to control access to our data, but the lawyers at Flock have done a super thorough job of making customer control look cool and mean nothing. Clause 5.3 in the contract says that Flock can share our data, including to DHS, without consulting the sheriff's office. Clause 4.3 says that we, quote, grant Flock a non-exclusive, worldwide, perpetual, royalty-free right to use and distribute the data. Like it or not, the world is demanding our diligence in an increasingly tech and data-driven economy. It is on us to protect ourselves. Please break up with Flock, who are deeply connected to Palantir, and adopt the ACLU legislation and make future decisions about surveillance through a crisper lens. Thank you.
Up next, we have Miguel, who's joining us online. Robert Miguel.
Oh, there. Sorry. That often happens to my name. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I'm going to join with my fellow community members in asking the legislature to discontinue our relationship with Flock. I live in the town of Brookendale, and we just got our most recent Flock camera installed. I can't believe that, you know, in terms of approving this contract, it should have been, you should always be thinking about the technology in the worst possible hands when implementing things. And the idea that, oh, we have a benevolent sheriff that will make sure that our data is secure is not how you should do your tech policy. You should think of the worst possible actors, which in this case seems like it might be the federal government, in terms of we're hearing from whistleblowers within ICE saying that he's being instructed to tell ICE officers to break the Fourth Amendment. They're not following the law. You need to think of the worst possible actors using this technology. And it's shocking to me that we've basically got our own panopticon in the city of Ithaca. I mean, I just have my one camera in Brookendale that I'm aware of, but you hover over the city of Ithaca and it's just 40, 50 cameras on every freaking street. And it's just, I can't believe that our tax dollars are being used to pay for spying on us. And it's really frustrating in terms of, I reached out to my town supervisor about the camera to express my concerns, and he was basically like, that's a Tompkins County thing, that's the sheriff, and this is the only venue it seems that we have in which to express our voice. And it's unfortunate that we basically had all these installed and it seems against public sentiment. So I just want to again say, please discontinue the contract with Flock. Let's get these things out of our communities. I don't believe in the safety arguments. I believe it's lazy policing, just giving all of our data and giving it to an AI company that can do facial recognition and track individual cars and where they're going at all times of day. So anyways, thank you. Have a good day.
Up next, we have Brian.
Hello. Hi. Can I raise this at all? Oh, I'll just bend over. Oh, there you go. It's going to make this ironic. My name is Brian Carden. I live in the town of Ithaca, and I'm represented by Christy Bianconi. I swear, even though I couldn't operate the microphone, I have a degree in physics from MIT. A lot of my day job involves capturing and analyzing video and audio in scientific experiments. I create and use machine learning algorithms, now popularly known as AI, to analyze this data. So I'm begging you to please listen to me about what you've done by allowing Flock into our neighborhoods. Nowadays, most people know AI primarily as a chatbot that can proofread your resume or write an essay for you, but that is not what it was originally developed for. It was developed to pick patterns out of large, complex data sets in ways that are difficult or impossible for humans with traditional algorithms. Let me try to explain what that means. You've paid Flock to set up a massive around-the-clock surveillance network. At 51 locations around the county that I know of, it is recording images of everything that moves in front of that lens and putting it in a massive database. An algorithm then extracts identifying information from those images, including but not limited to the license plate number. That means every day, tens or hundreds of thousands of times, your neighbors are getting identified, recorded, and logged in a very, very big data table that lives on a server somewhere else in the country under Flock's control. A human trying to make sense of that fire hose of data would be lost, but a machine learning algorithm can be trained to quickly pick a very surprising amount of detailed information from that data. An ML algorithm could be designed to, for example, identify groups of people who are meeting with each other, create a list of people who attended a protest or a vigil, infer political affiliation, religious beliefs, sexual orientations, infer where you live, work, study, and play. And that's just the location data. From the images, ML algorithms can also potentially identify what you're wearing, carrying, driving, who you're with, which adds an even richer layer of detail for algorithms to draw inferences from. I have Flock's terms and conditions here. They're ever-changing, but this is the most recent one. They guarantee only that the data will be removed from the police web portal at the end of the retention period, which is 30 days for us. It does not in any way guarantee that the data is deleted from Flock's servers. It just means that we can't see it anymore. Flock has, as of February, has an irrevocable perpetual license to keep our data for as long as they like even after the contract ends. Also, while the raw data technically belongs to the municipality, analytical products of the data, which is the really valuable privacy-violating stuff that comes out of the ML algorithms, wholly belongs to Flock. And the contract places very few limits that I can see on how the analytical products may be used. It's also important to remember that a Flock ALPR is really just a computer with a camera and a wireless modem. There's nothing in the latest terms and conditions that prohibits Flock from remotely and silently updating the software to change how they work. The latest terms and conditions defines collected data broadly to include images, audio, and video. The contract does not appear to prohibit them from enabling video recording in the future without notice. This is so much more than a license plate reader. This is a technological Trojan horse, and we have opened the gates to it. That's my professional opinion. On a personal note, I just don't want to live in a place where a government or a corporation is monitoring me constantly. The freedom to conduct my personal business in my hometown without being involuntarily monitored and analyzed is important to me, and I suspect to a large majority of people. Please give that back to us. Thank you.
We will go with Jared next.
Hey, it's me again. I am represented by Rachel. Nice to meet you, see you, something. I don't really have a prepared statement this time, so this is off the cuff. We're doing it live. Okay, public safety. I understand that there's a lot that I don't know about public safety, but I have yet to see, it's been months since I've been involved, started to get involved with the Flock issue, and I have yet to see anything that backs up this claim that Flock is making us safer. Like, I have yet to see anything that says that there are crimes that have been solved with Flock that would otherwise have been impossible to solve. It doesn't seem like public safety to blatantly disregard the Fourth Amendment. People's civil liberties are, a big part of public safety. To just blatantly disregard that, very silly. Now that I'm up here, the nerves are hitting, and I had more things that I was going to go with, but you all have to listen to me for 3 minutes, so I'll just hang out up here. This data is not being stored securely. Like, people, all of us here have talked about these data security vulnerabilities, for the past couple of months, to willingly continue not even continue the Flock with contract, to not be covering up the lenses is willful ignorance of all of the security vulnerability, the massive security vulnerabilities that are in these cameras. I swear I had more. Let me check I did take notes. You let me know when my time is up here, because otherwise I'm just gonna. This was the thing I was going for. I don't feel safer having a database, a compendium of everyone's place of worship, who's visiting the dispensaries, who's going to the liquor store, who's going to meet up with the extramarital. None of that's the kind of thing that you have signed us all up for with the Flock cameras. There's databases of who's gone to protests, and I don't feel safer having this database of who is Jewish or Catholic or whatever, you know. That's very silly to me.
Jared?
Yeah.
Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. We're going to hop back online and go to Zach Wynn. And then up next after Zach will be Mary. Zach, you with us? There we go.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you very much. My name is Zach Wynn, and I live here in the city of Ithaca. I'd like to speak to the Flock working group that is being discussed on the agenda today. I had learned from previous discussions about Flock that there is about $700,000 in annual youth employment funding that is contingent on accepting the GIVE grant, with GIVE and Flock kind of inextricably linked, as you know, the funding for Flock comes from that annual grant that is accepted. I'm curious if it would be possible for it to be a goal of the working group to get a response on the record from Albany and the Department of Criminal Justice Services, who provides the GIVE grant funding, if it would be possible to remove Flock from the GIVE grant and still be able to renew it and get all the other benefits, such as funding for probation, the additional man hours for the sheriff, and then by extension, by accepting Flock, the youth employment funding. Because, you know, to turn down Flock at this point would mean declining those funds, and I don't think anyone wants to do that. So it would be nice to have an official determination of whether or not it would be possible to renew GIVE absent Flock. So I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you very much.
Mary.
Hello, I'm Mary White. I live here in the city of Ithaca, just around the corner.
All right, can you bend down the microphone?
Is that better? Okay. I live in Ithaca. I'm Mary White. I would like to see the Flock cameras removed. I think it's unfortunate if they're being held in some kind of a tied to other programs and funding. That is most unpleasant to hear. I do not feel safe for having the cameras in place. I do not feel we should be monitoring who goes to what meeting or group or anywhere else. We've been told through our federal government that certain programs were going to make us safer, that they were going to only remove the worst of the worst from our communities. We know that we were lied to. I think that the fact that Flock is making us somehow safer, in quotes unquote, is also probably a lie. Thank you.
Shelby.
My name is Shelby Chubb. Hello, everybody. I live in District 1 in Section 1. I'm a resident here and a homeowner. I'm originally from Akwesasne, New York, a Mohawk Nation. As a Haudenosaunee woman, I am here to bring my perspective of whenever we have met, we always have to think about the 7 generations principle. Some people might already be familiar with that and might already be familiar with the concept of thinking 7 generations ahead. What decisions we make today have repercussions into the future. However, 7 generations also includes the 7 generations before us. We stand in between. The 7 generations before us show us some perspective in history. It shows us what happens when we acquiesce our rights. It shows us what happens when certain demographics are targeted and put under surveillance. It shows us that our governments are willing to take our rights away if they deem necessary. And that is why I'm here today voicing my opposition to Flock. I grew up on the Canadian border. The border goes straight through my reservation, and I am acutely familiar with the violence that comes with surveillance. I have seen my elders dragged out of their cars and beaten up by federal agents. This is not some potential mishap. these sorts of things do happen, and they can happen. And if we continue to allow surveillance without any sort of process in terms of warrants, I will tell you right now, I do not consent. I do not consent to my children being tracked. I don't think anybody's parents who are parents here would consent to their children's being tracked. We need to be setting up a consent culture, not a surveillance culture. Let's think about historically who becomes the surveilled groups. Are it the people who are in the Epstein files that are being held accountable for anything? Or is it minority cultures, minority people, people at risk who tend to be at the heaviest hand of policing? Thank you for your time.
Up next, we have Josh Dolan.
Thanks, Travis. I'm Josh Dolan. I live on North Corn Street in Veronica Pillar's district. I'm also here today to speak out against flock. When I was reading the sheriff's report last week, I couldn't help but notice one of the shots that was detected was at my former residence, as you know, Travis, two houses down from your place. A disgruntled ex of my upstairs neighbor shot out the back window of her car. Did flock safety prevent this from happening? No. Did flock help solve the crime? No. Do I feel safer knowing that flock is watching us constantly? Again, no. It's my neighbors looking out for each other that make me feel safer, not a corporation in Atlanta that has been involved in dozens of documented abuses, from assisting with the arrest of legal immigrants to the stalking of vulnerable women. Their involvement with Cop City in Atlanta also involved the extrajudicial murder of a protester down there, Tortuguita. I trust traditional and modern police investigation techniques, not a bad actor who is financially tied to some of the most sinister of billionaire supervillains trying to undermine our democracy. And I have the utmost respect for the sheriff. And while I'm a harsh critic of policing in this country, I support the county sheriff system because it's democratic and it's an elected position. And I hope that's on your mind, Derek, as you listen to your constituents today. Despite claims by the sheriff, however, Flock does share data with ICE. It's well documented. We can provide numerous articles detailing that collaboration. We know that they're using surveillance to track activists as well outside the mission of a rogue agency. It's time for Tompkins County to take a firm stance and end its contract with Flock. It's a terrible company with invasive technology with dubious legality under the Fourth Amendment. Additionally, we urge the passage of ACLU's COPS or CCOPS model legislation so that in the future the public has an opportunity to review and comment on future adoption of surveillance technology. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann?
Thank you. I live on Lower West Hill on Chestnut Street, so I'm in Travis's district. I'd like to make clear that flock cameras have had nothing to do with the reduction of gun violence in Ithaca. There was definitely a spike in gun violence coming out of the pandemic. I live, as I said, on Lower West Hill on Chestnut Street and remember it. And I remember when my kids' school in Cayuga Heights went on lockdown because there was a guy with a gun fleeing the police. But in the fall of 2021, the county DA prosecuted 3 of the guys responsible. And because of this, and I'm sure of other important police work, the gun violence declined tremendously into 2022 and 23. The city didn't finalize their contract, their flock contract, until December of 23, the county in August of 23. And the first flock camera that we noticed being installed in our neighborhood was in June of 2024. So don't let flock take credit for the downward trend in gun violence. And I also urge the group to ask the county DA for data on cases that he's prosecuted where flock has provided evidence. Next, I'd like to address the illusion that law enforcement customers have full control over our data. If you read the flock contract, as other people have mentioned, there are two clauses which are alarming. The first is that flock retains a worldwide irrevocable license to use our data to train its AI and further develop its technology. The second is clause 5.3, disclosure of footage. Flock retains the right to hand over our data at any time that it feels legally required to do so. I also don't think that the sheriff has control over how other jurisdictions handle their searches. For example, IPD handles their searches much differently than the county. Cornell, Groton, Ithaca College may all handle their searches differently. I'm glad he limited our data to within Tompkins County, but our data is still shared with the New York State Police and the New York State Crime Analysis Network, which, when I look it up, is a network of almost every county in the state. So I wonder if the working group has read about how Flock was running a pilot program with the Department of Homeland Security up until August of last year, when an Illinois state audit uncovered the data sharing. There was also Mountain View, California, recently in the news. They just discovered a few weeks ago that their Flock data was being shared at the nationwide and statewide level without the consent of their police department. So this is by no means a personal attack on the sheriff. As far as I can tell, he's doing a better job than most at trying to be transparent and communicative with the community. But these are very real and deep issues about privacy and the mass collection of data. And I just don't want to be surveilled in my own hometown. This is not an anti-police movement, it's an anti-surveillance movement. And I'm just not hearing the sheriff or our police chief being willing to listen to the fact that people just don't want to be surveilled on their own streets. Thanks.
Shirley.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shirley Kane. I moved here from Saratoga County in 1977. So I've been a county resident for a few weeks. I'm a retired county employee after 40 years of service from the Department of Social Services. I recently resigned as the chair of the city's Community Police Board after 12 years of service on that citizen oversight board of the Ithaca City Police. I was engaged in the process when the GIVE program became available. The Community Police Board evaluated what it would do for the community. While it certainly didn't make a county evaluation, it made a city evaluation. And the risk-reward relationship was far greater than any sort of misuse by the company Flock. If Flock is the problem, then let's look for a different company that has greater ethics. So my message certainly is this. We're in a profound time. AI is here to stay. Certainly there's somebody in the Oval Office that has a few screws loose, and things are happening in our community and in our country that are completely unacceptable to an aging hippie like me. And so I would, ask the working group to open up our minds, understanding that certainly the GIVE program has had a profound effect on crime in this community, and that there are large numbers of monies coming in for youth development programs, which we can't ignore, because we need to provide and accept the fact that the youth are having a different life than we have had. So let's look at making sure that we include the city in any sort of discussions that we have surrounding Flock. We should be a united group regarding Flock in or Flock out or something new. But if you decide that one is out and one is in, then you've created a haven for crime, for the individuals who want to commit crime to show up at this particular location because they know they can hide out there because their car's not going to be identified, and they can snag a new one and off they go. So please think about the greater good when we're looking at this. I understand everybody's concerns. I have the same concerns myself. But we're going to have to navigate it We can't just shut it down because it's not going to go away. Thank you.
Up next, we have Reggie.
Hi, I'm Reggie Teasley. I live on West Hill. I drive by a surveillance camera every time I come downtown, and I don't like it. All of my degrees are in sociology. I've taught sociology and criminology for 30 years. I've also examined policing, so I have a couple of comments to say about that. As I was driving here, I saw a truck, and it said, "Think ahead," which I think is always good advice and something I wish we had done beforehand. I would also say, think in the broader view. For example, as you may know, ICE is building massive centers for sending the people they seize. There's a fight in Virginia right now about a massive center to send the people who are seized by ICE. There's also a fight going on right now in New Hampshire, again, building a massive center for these people. Who are these people? Because they might be us too. And now I see that it's not simply immigrants who are supposedly the worst of the worst. Now it might be somebody who has a problem in family court. Keep up with the news. And they might be appropriate people to seize as well. Why are we handing up our neighbors on a silver platter to an administration that is dramatically harming and actually killing some of them and consistently violating the Fourth Amendment and due process? I would say FLOC is a solution in search of a problem. We do not have the problem and we do not need the solution. Basically what this is a wonderful data gathering for FLOC and Palantir. The other thing I would say is technology and policing have an interesting relationship. Technology might make policing seem more scientific, but in fact, the very best policing, study after study tells us, is community policing. People are the ones who tell police what's going on. If the police don't have a comfortable relationship with the community, they don't know about most crimes. Ask them, right? The very best policing is community policing. Machines don't improve it. I would love to see us move in the direction of more police walking the street and stopping and talking to people in neighborhoods. That would make the biggest positive impact on our community's safety. We know the police, they know us, and we keep the community safe. Thank you.
Up next, we have Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam Chandler. I live downtown. I submitted a comment yesterday, so my comment here will be brief. I sent a bibliography that's about 80 pages long. I hope you all received it. It's the articles and documents and so forth that some of the people in this room and other people in the community have been sharing with each other, educating each other about FLOC and about mass surveillance. I'm a librarian, and I use the term collective sense making, and I think we're all doing that here together. I do, like probably everybody in this, maybe most people in this room, have fears about the federal government, and I'm also not anti-local police. We need you to be on our side, and we need you to shift your orientation away from seeing people like us as the enemy or the potential crime perpetrators to being the people that you serve and that you protect. Law enforcement is a pretty arbitrary thing. One of the articles in that bibliography, if you search keyword MLB or you just find it, was this dad who showed up at his son's baseball game and a FLOC hit had activated on his license plate. He was out there coaching his son's baseball team, and the sheriff came and arrested him in front of all the other parents and the kids, his own son, for a warrant that had been on the books for 20 years, I think, if I remember correctly, that he thought had been taken care of. He was holding a can of beer when he was 18, and he thought his lawyer had taken care of it. Everybody thought they had taken care of it. But Flock's a data broker. Fundamentally, it's a data broker. And so they had dredged up this data that nobody else had been paying attention to because they were, scanning. Who knows where they get everything, right? And they issued a warrant, and the sheriff just saw, oh, there's a warrant. Let's arrest this guy, because that's the way some people in law enforcement think. So if they, it's just an astonishing story to me that this would happen. So I hope that you'll spend some time with all the documents that we've assembled for you and continue to assemble. And I hope that you can shift your attention to telling Flock that we won't be renewing that contract, first and foremost, that you will deactivate the cameras or just put some bags over them for now while you're figuring the legal parts of this out. Thank you.
Ruth is up next.
Hello, my name is Ruth Yarrow. I've lived in Ithaca a total of 30 years. I would like to see the Flock cameras, the whole program ended. My concerns are that the excuse for Flock cameras is safety. What I see it as is concentrating information, data in the hands of people who are already having too much power over our democracy. If I want safety, I would look to groups like FEMA, which is being cut, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, which is being cut, to the EPA, that's being cut, to our Fourth Amendment rights, to my neighbors who I know, to police walking the streets in pairs and speaking to people as human beings. Technology is not the answer for true safety. Thank you.
Up next, we have Amanda. Yes.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm speaking today in support of establishing an unbiased working group to study flock safety technology. And I think that's going to be a hard thing to locate in our community, unfortunately. As a seventh generation member of a family rooted in Tompkins County, I care deeply about the long-term well-being, safety, and civil liberties of the place all of us call home. Public safety and civil liberties do not have to be in conflict, but they do require thoughtful design, transparency, and ongoing oversight. Welcome to the technology age, friends. Flock style systems introduce a powerful new compatibilities for law enforcement, yet they also raise important questions about data governance, access, retention, accuracy, and the power and the potential for unintended surveillance of ordinary residents. Tompkins County, however, is uniquely positioned to approach this issue with rigor and care because of the extraordinary expertise that we have here. We have a sheriff with a heart of gold. We have a district attorney who has done so much to help protect vulnerable persons. And we have this Ivy League institution that actually has people who are experts in AI, data, surveillance, law, civil liberties. The list goes on and on and on and on. So we have resources that other counties simply don't have. And an unbiased working group that intentionally draws on this local knowledge base could model what evidence-driven governance actually looks like at the county level. And we could set precedents for not only our state, but for the nation. I see a meaningful opportunity here to renegotiate the terms of any existing or future contracts so that we can establish strong data privacy protections and civil liberty protections from the outset rather than reacting later. We can proactively define clear limits around retention, access, permissions, transparency requirements, and independent oversight. If Flock's opposed to it, that's really revealing. An independent working group offers us a balanced path forward. Instead of framing this as a debate between for or against, a study group allows our community to evaluate real outcomes. What problems is the technology actually solving? What safeguards are necessary to prevent misuse? Who can access the data? Under what conditions? With what accountability? Most importantly, such a working group should include diverse perspectives. Legal experts, civil rights advocates, technologists, community members, law enforcement. I see that we have all of those things in Tompkins County, and I know that there are people who would love to participate in this group. I have a short list of people from Cornell that I could direct you towards. Let's see, we're at a moment where trust in public systems depends not just on effectiveness, but on process. Creating an unbiased forum signals that this legislature values evidence over urgency and transparency over assumption. Thank you for your time, but let's slow down and really do this right, please, because we could set a precedent that could help other people enter the information age. Thank you.
Last but never least, former legislator Rich John. Lee, can you make sure this young man doesn't go over his 3 minutes?
Only to it. Good to see everybody, and I'll start out by saying thank you for your service. There. It's very interesting to be standing over here rather than there. And I've tried kind of to stay away, but I did want to come in and talk about this issue because I had a chance to have a conversation with our sheriff about this. As Amanda just indicated, I'd really indicate caution here. I agree entirely that we should be concerned about our surveillance systems that are going on in this country. If you go to a store, if you use a credit card, if you store stuff on the cloud, Lord knows if you're using AI for anything, yeah, you're getting surveilled. And we should be having a broad national discussion about that, and we should be pushing our national leaders to be addressing privacy. Absolutely. More specifically, if you look at the Flock system, it is a powerful tool. I agree we should be very concerned about it. At the same time, it is a tool, and it depends how it's used. If you look at other methods of surveillance, we don't know where our information is going. We don't really know who's getting it and what they're doing with it. And that's the broader system of surveillance. At least with the Flock system, we have a contract. And if there are contractual terms to change to make it better for us and to better protect our data, do that. Absolutely. At the same time, there's a trust issue here that you as legislators are sending messages to our law enforcement community. Do you trust them? And I like a model that has local control, local ownership, and local accountability, rather than most of the surveillance we're undergoing, which we have none of that. You have the opportunity to do that here, and I hope you go very slowly to see if it's possible to use that. Or to continue to use the Flock system. We've had license plate readers in cars for decades, I believe. They've been used by police officers for a very long time. There has been no public outcry. It is the static cameras that put it in a different light, I guess, and we should look at it really carefully, but please look at it very carefully. And if you make a decision, you know, in a binary to say, let's just get rid of it, I hope you're prepared to own that decision. That is a courageous decision in a way, in that there are a lot of people in our community that are at more risk than we are. When all the gunfire was going on in our community, it wasn't in my neighborhood, but I knew it was happening in our community. And I saw the GIVE grant as a way to really get a handle on this, and whether it was specifically the cameras or the whole program, it made a difference. It helped. So I hope you think about all that. Thanks.
I would like to thank everybody that came to speak today and the folks that joined us online. It's critical that we hear from the community, we hear your concerns. We're going to get to a discussion in the agenda about FLOC. It's going to disappoint some of you because we're not going to go through the merits of FLOC. We're going to talk about establishing a working group to look at some of those things. So I hope I don't disappoint too many of you all. We have a lot on this agenda, and we're going to keep things moving pretty quickly. Can I get a mover for the November and December minutes? Rachel moves, Lee seconds. Can we get a vote? And that is unanimous. All right. We have two sets of appointments. We have advisory board, well, actually, yes. We have advisory board on indigent representation. Can I get a mover? Can I get a seconder? We have Rachel and Irene. Diane Bruns, at-large member, term expires December 31st, 2028. Requires approval for term extension for fourth term serving. All those in favor? That is unanimous. We have two legislature appointees. Can I get a mover? Veronica moves, Irene seconds. The first one is Advisory Board on Indigent Representation, IBIR. Rachel Ostlund, legislature, term expires December 31st, 2027. Criminal Justice Alternatives to Incarceration, CJATI. Travis Brooks, legislator, chair of Public Safety Committee, term expires dependent on position to Public Safety Committee. All those in favor? All right, appointments are done. Chair's report. I have 3 items on my report. I'm going to move the first 2, which is the goals and establishing an EMS working group to later on in the agenda so we can get through all the resolutions. The next one is County Flock Safety Camera Policy Working Group, ID 13891. Can I have a mover to open that discussion? Rachel? Do I need a mover? I don't need a mover.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. The idea of this working group is to look at policies around access, the contract, policies in general, security data, and other items that come up to make the system we have better for our community. The idea is to have folks from the legislature group, assign counsel, the DA's office, the county attorney, obviously the sheriff's department, folks from the community. I do think there'll be several different groups from the community, experts around AI, data security, community members in general. The idea today isn't to really get into whether we should have FLOC or not. It's to kind of talk about this working group, see if there's somebody from here who wants to kind of chair it and get this started. So I'll open up the floor for discussion. Is that Veronica?
I think this is a good idea. You articulated the need for it. What is it that you want to hear from us?
It would be nice for me to hear from you all, different folks you think that should be on the group, those of you who are interested in being on the group, and if any one of you is interested in kind of leading the group.
I'm definitely interested in being on the group. I'm willing to lead it. I don't know that other people would want that, but putting that out there. I guess we heard requests to have folks from the city involved, not just residents, but I think even though we don't have any authority over what like the city and IPD do, it makes sense to bring the conversation together. Would love to have someone who's expert in the like surveillance technology side of it, or like the contracting with technology company sides. I assume Derek and Jen will be on it, and anyone else you want to bring. any of our department heads sitting in a gorgeously coordinated row at the back table would be good to have. And maybe, like, would love to have some community members who are, who feel like have been impacted by, in any direction, by the flock cameras specifically and or the GIVE grant in general. Because I think one thing, one of our, Zach Gwynn asked us to figure out clearly figure out whether we can separate the flock contract from the rest of the GIVE grant. And I think, I mean, I've never agreed with him so much. I think that's exactly like one of the clear questions here that would really change the decisions on the table.
Irene?
Yeah, I would like, I think setting up a working group is a great idea. I'd like to suggest that we have somebody from our own IT department. I know that they are very well informed about various aspects of cybersecurity. I think they could advise us well. And, you know, I don't know how others feel, but it sounds like Amanda has compiled a list of suggested people. I don't know, is there a way, I know with advisory committees, we solicit, you know, we put out an application who wants to serve and we review the applications, and the advisory board, you know, selects people. I don't know if something like that is appropriate to figure out membership and get names from the community, or how this works, but I'd want to suggest that if we can do that.
Thank you. Rachel?
I also think it's a great idea to have a working group. I'd like to be part of it. And in terms of membership, it might be I'm curious how many people we'd want on it total, just so it's a manageable size that both, you know, we'd want to have a lot of different perspectives, but you wouldn't want like 40 people on a working group or something. So I'm curious where we'll land. But I was also thinking that maybe we could have some representation from, I mean, if IPD wanted to be part of it, that'd be great, but maybe like one of the other smaller kind of outlying departments that also has their own block system, just so that, as some people have mentioned before, like if we're going to turn off the cameras, like it would be good to have kind of like a county-wide discussion over what that means, and kind of maybe, not that we have control over everyone else in the county, but that everyone can kind of be looped in to wherever we land on it. I think that was, and then I also hope that we can, in the group, kind of start from the position that everyone who'd be part of the group, like whether it's from the Sheriff's Department or from the Flock Off group, that like everyone wants the same thing in the end, and we have really different ideas of how we're going to get there, but that we can kind of approach the group with, a willingness to see everyone's good intentions.
Derek, is it just the Sheriff's Department and IPD who has access? The other law enforcement officers have to go through you all to get access?
To go through us?
So like Groton Police Department or Dryden Police Department, do they have access, or do they have to go through you?
Groton has temporary access, which probably won't stay much longer. And then Cornell, Ithaca College, Cuba Heights, Trumansburg.
Okay.
They have their own separate contracts with Flock.
Right.
They don't go through us.
Gotcha. All right. Judith.
Thanks, Travis. I know I'm not on public safety, but I would very much appreciate participating in this working group. As you know, it is an interest of mine.
Well, it definitely won't be 40 people, but it will be a large group of people. There's a lot of stakeholders involved, and we want to make sure everybody's at the table. I don't know if we have time to kind of put out something to the community and wait for applications and sort through that. We have heard from quite a few people. We've had some people send emails. We do have some experts out in the community in those different areas. But maybe the first thing we could do is get everybody together that's involved, figure out who those additional people would be, and then ask them if they want to be involved. My hope is that you know, over the course of 3 or 4 months, we can come back with something to public safety, and then perhaps that could go to the full legislature. I can say this, I think that wherever we land, there's going to be folks that aren't happy with what we come up with. There's going to be folks that want more. There's going to be folks that want less, especially folks that don't want it at all. And we'll see where we land. I will work with the clerks to get a meeting time set up for the first meeting, and then we can figure out next steps from there. Does that sound fair to everybody? All right, cool.
Travis, I did just have a question, sorry. Do you know when our contract renews? Because it seems like the duration of the working group maybe should have, a target date that gives us enough time that whatever the recommendations are can then come to the legislature for consideration. So I just want to, I don't need to know that answer now if you don't know it off the top of your head, but I just want to suggest it as a way to bracket the timeline for the working group.
Derek, you know?
I wouldn't dare say with 100% accuracy, and like I've mentioned before, IPD actually manages the grant application. So
we can find out and coordinate that. I know we voted in November to renew it. So I would imagine that it's sometime in the beginning of the new year, but we can work with IPD. Veronica?
I think two things. I think the Give Grant contract year is July 1st to June 30th. And even though we accepted the funding after July 1st, so I don't know how contracts work. I'm curious, I don't know if you know, like when does a Give Grant application need to be submitted by?
I believe they occur around May. But again, we haven't done the application in the last couple of years. So I think it's May.
Right. I guess that's something to find out. My other thing was, is there a specific clear charge for the working group?
The charge is to develop the policy around FLOC and what that looks like. And the working group may want to go with a whole different company. They may research and find a different company to go to, a different way to do that. I'm not sure. I don't want to direct the working group outside of developing what that policy looks like. And I think if there's enough diversity in that working group, we can come out with something that kind of meets enough needs for folks. It certainly is not going to meet everybody's needs, but it may be able to meet enough needs. And who knows the direction. I think when we did the working group for the jail renovations or creating a new jail, I think that went really well. There were folks that were involved that right off the bat believed that we shouldn't have jails. And then they understood why we had to have jails through the working group, and were able to say, okay, if we have to have this, this is what it should look like. So I think we came out with a pretty good product. So I would trust the working group to kind of sort that out. And but the charge would be developing, our policy. And I do think it would be great to have IPD outreach out to the chief at that table, and maybe a few council members, since they'll have to make some decisions as well.
Can I suggest that it would be a policy around FLOC and or AI-powered surveillance in general, possibly?
Yeah.
Because obviously the company's important, but.
No, I appreciate that. All right, we are going to go to the county administrator's report. Corsa, you're up.
Yes, thank you. Quickly, the report for today just goes through the goals set by the department that report to public safety. These goals are put together through consultation with the department and also critical needs that exist within the department. So if individuals have questions about any of the goals, I believe the department are available to provide direct responses. So these are goals we set for ourselves for 2026. And as we laid out in January, in February, last year's goals, we hope that we will follow up and be able to present the full details of achievement at the end of the year. So, and the report we have.
That's it?
Yes, so if anybody has questions about any of the goals, we'll be happy to provide answers through the department.
All right, thank you.
Or if there are specifics that you'd like to also see as goals for any of our department, these are amendable and we can include those goals as well.
All right. Thank you, Corsa. We'll move over to the Sheriff's Department.
Thank you. I think you've got a lot of information from us because we haven't had a meeting in a little bit, so you should have my monthly reports for November and December of last year and January. Just a couple things to point out. For November, we did a food drive in partnership with Cops, Kids, and Toys, which was very successful. We're hoping to set up another one here in March, I believe. Shop with a Cop, again with Cops, Kids, and Toys. That's always a big hit every year. We also received a thank you letter that's in there from Sheriff Helms in Cortland County for his help with our help to him in a homicide investigation. December, I wanted to thank our DA, Matt Van Houten, for providing traffic stop training to all our deputies. That was very well received. It's not just how to do a traffic stop, a lot with search and seizure and things of that nature. That was a good update for everybody to get. Cops, Kids, and Toys in December also. We helped deliver presents, 403 families, 804 children. So definitely that's a program that's growing and something we like to see in the community. January, we took part in a multi-agency reality-based training exercise, which is active shooter type scenario-based training that makes it as realistic as possible. That was well received as well. We also had investigator Jamie Peer retire, and it looks like we're going to have a road patrol sergeant retiring in March, which is going to hurt our staffing a little bit. We currently have 4 open correction officer positions. Now that includes 2 that were just previously funded in this upcoming budget. But we have a whole bunch of interviews next week, so hopefully we'll fill those right away. We have 4 COs attending Corrections Academy in a couple weeks. And then we have 2 open deputy positions right now. 1 deputy is going to the academy here pretty soon. We have some background investigations, so hopefully we'll have those positions filled too in time to do some promotions. So we're looking forward to that. As far as the jail, today we had 49 housed, 4 females boarded out, so our numbers are still relatively low, which is good. And I think that's about it, unless anybody has questions.
Is there any questions for Derek before we get to the resolution? Rachel?
Thanks for the reports. I had a quick question. So because we were able to see the November, December, and January statistics, it looks like January was an anomaly in some areas, and I don't know if that's normal or like a normal fluctuation or something else was going on. One of the things I noticed, that bail money seemed really different. It was really low. It was $2,800 in January, but it's $34,000 and $31,000 in November and December. And then the revenue under the civil division statistics was a lot higher in January. So I was just curious, like, why we see those differences.
As far as the jail numbers go, you're going to see over time, we have no control over it. It's going to fluctuate on and off all the time. It just depends on what cases the DA's office has going on, what judges decide to do as far as sentencing or holding people. We see fluctuations quite frequently. Sometimes with no rhyme or reason. It could just be the caseload that's going on at that time.
Okay.
As far as the civil revenue, I don't know. Do you have any indication what that could be?
I would assume because we're at the end of the year, so all the 13th period reports will probably come. I would assume because we're at the end of the year and the 13th period reports were coming in, that they're all getting settled, and that might have been reflected in the January report.
Yeah. Thanks.
And also, the polar plunge is March 21st, if anyone's interested. I'm trying to convince Derek to do it again with me.
Polar plunge. And don't forget, we have our legislator tours of the jail this Thursday. That's the first one. So if you've forgotten, please show up if you can.
All right, we do have a resolution.
Wait, can I ask a question? Yep. I should know this, but do you all do departmental goals?
We do, yeah. I think we got them in like a smidge too late for them to be in the report, but yeah. You want to speak to that? You actually developed it.
Yep. We could submit them for next month. So I can tell you that they're pretty much going to be the same as 2025. We reflected on them while we...
Can you get closer to your mic?
Sorry.
Or bent, or I don't know.
They're going to be pretty much the same as 2025. While we made progress in all of the goals we set in 2025, we weren't able to fulfill them. So they're going to look pretty similar to 2026, minus a few things to take care of. I could speak off the cuff about some of them. It's going to be civil division accreditation. We still want to try to get access and to a new boat. I mean, obviously, I know that we talked about that during the budget. We're hoping that the CARE team research project with RIT will be finalized this year. That's part of that as well. We're still working on creating a new patrol zone, specifically around bike patrol up in the mall area. So those are just probably some of the bigger ones I could think of.
Well, and a continuation of our transparency hubs too. That's been ongoing work.
Try to finish those, as well as the camera system in the jail is kind of reaching the end of life. So you'll see that reflected on the goals as well.
Awesome, thank you. I would love to hear maybe at some point a clear summary of the boat funding options and prospects, because I guess that's been a saga for a little while.
It keeps coming up every year.
Yeah.
All right, resolution, authorization to contract with Seneca County for boarding of inmates. 3-year contract, ID 13801. Do we have a mover? Lee moves. Veronica seconds. Discussion.
I can say we've had a contract with them all along. This is just an updated one going into this year. It's pretty routine. It gives us an opportunity to have another facility to board people out to, which we do quite frequently. It's a close location for us, so it benefits all of us.
Any questions? Rachel?
I was wondering if there are certain populations that we typically board out, like if we're boarding out women, are we boarding out women to the Seneca?
Yeah, like I mentioned, we had 49 inmates today and 4 board outs, all females. Females always get hit the hardest because of the way we have to separate people within the facility. There's not a lot of opportunities for us to house females, so unfortunately they get the short end of the stick more often than not.
They usually go to Seneca, is that?
I'm sorry?
Do they usually go to this jail in Seneca County?
They go to multiple ones. We try to always get them as close to home as we can, but Seneca being one of them.
All right.
Yeah, I was wondering also why Seneca and which other facilities we work with, and whether for the people that are boarded out, if there's any kind of transportation or, how their families are able to visit.
No, unfortunately not. There's no transportation that the county provides for people. Absolutely not. But we use multiple jails. It could be Cuga, it could be Cortland, we use quite frequently. We have contracts with various different jails.
And are there cost differences from one to the next, or are they all pretty
No,
much
it's
the
all
same?
pretty standard. I believe this contract has it $110 a day, which is pretty much the going rate now.
Okay. Versus how much does it cost if they were housed in-house?
I mean, it's probably a little bit if we were holding them in-house. Time you take into account food and all that stuff, but I don't imagine it's a huge difference.
Okay.
I mean, where we're investing or spending our time is the transporting back and forth and things of that nature, which is not the best situation.
I wonder if some of the various nonprofit groups that work on issues related to people who are incarcerated, whether you've had conversations with them about figuring out transportation?
That's not something I've gotten involved in, no. I think ideally, we'd like to keep everybody at home in our local.
Sure, but
And I would also just bring up that most jails have access to tablets, so they're able to have video visitation as well with their families, which I know is different than actually seeing someone in person, but for the most part, most jails are equipped with that technology as an option.
Okay, thanks.
Lee?
110 seems pretty reasonable based on some of what we saw in the past. Any idea, what are we averaging on board outs now? Numbers, volume-wise, 4 or 5 people, time to time?
Yeah, I would say no more than 4 at a time, if I was to say. There's always at least 2, if I was to throw out a number. So I would say 2 to 4.
Not a huge volume anymore.
No. I mean, you've been around long enough. Tompkins County, our numbers used to be 90 to 100, 110 housed.
I can remember
so
a lot of
49 is
people.
pretty incredible.
I can remember a lot of people going to Broome and Shenango County
right.
10, 12, 15 years ago. And Seneca seems to be a little more reasonable trip for most.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at it this way, a lot of these counties built really massive facilities, and now they're having a hard time filling them. So they're always itching to get us to board people out with them if we can. So,
thanks.
Yeah.
Veronica?
How does the $110 per inmate per day compare to how much does it cost to house someone in our jail? And I realize you might not be able to compare because it.
Yeah, I think that's the same question.
There's all the baseline cost.
Yeah, I don't know. I could get that number for you. I know the captain of the jail does have a number that she can come up with the average cost per day. It's probably not $110, but I doubt it's much less. I would guess maybe 80 if I was to throw a number out, but I'll look into that for you.
Well, you'd have to do the analysis on the capital part as well.
Irene?
Yeah, do we get people from other counties boarding in to our facility?
No. Never. We really can't. Our facility is not large enough, and most counties, like I said, have much larger facilities, so they're always looking for revenue to bring in. That's why some of them we're seeing, are signing up 287G agreements, or they're looking to counties like us to board out with them.
Rich John always used to give the jail numbers during his Public Safety Committee update at the full legislature meetings, and I think maybe once he reported a board-in with surprise.
Yeah. All right, any other questions?
Travis, I see Corsa's hand.
Oh, Corsa.
Yeah, I just wanted to help the conversation in terms of the board out and the motivation. Sometimes cost is also a factor, depending on how the jail is laid out, because jails staffing is usually not just based on how many inmates we have, but the size of the jail. So as we plan for a future public safety building, we may still be boarding out, even if you have a new facility. So for example, if you have just 2 or 3 females, it's cost effective to board out than to keep them and staff the whole part or things like that. So there are several deciding factors that goes into those decision-making process as well. So just wanted to make you aware some of those issues that affect or that influence some of our decision points eventually.
Any more to add to this discussion? Irene?
Can I just respond to what Corsa just said? I would like to think that when we design a new facility that it takes into account for female inmates and possibly even people who are gender nonconforming, so that we have a way to manage that without sending people away. And to me it comes back to the humanity of it and being able to have family, friends, whatever, visit. I'd like to think that we could design something that could accommodate women and men and people who are gender nonconforming.
There's a great deal of information in the report that was done for the jail renovation or new build out that talks about some of that. So that's when we had the working group that was taken into consideration, and there's information in there.
Great, good to know, thanks.
And just to cover that, we never would make the decision to board out females strictly for monetary gain. We board out mostly, unfortunately, female incarcerated persons just strictly because of space-wise. It's never based on a financial decision.
Yeah, good. I didn't expect that, but I just, in terms of Corsa's comment that the facility can accommodate, I get that that's the case right now, but I would hope that future designs, and it sounds like that is part of the plan, so good.
All right, we ready to vote? All those in favor of moving resolution 13801? All right, that seems to be unanimous. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Jen. We'll move over to the DA's office. Mr. Van Houten.
Thanks, Travis.
I think, I know Irene is interested in this update. We have gotten the grant funding for the victim advocate position. It has not, the ink is not on the paper yet. We're communicating with DCJS on a very regular basis, bugging them about that final step. In contemplation of that, I have interviewed candidates and picked someone, and she is waiting in the wings very impatiently to start work. But that's going to be a huge improvement for our office and something that we're all very anxious to start using in the office. That takes me to the question of where will they work? Because, I mean, I'll offer this tour to anybody who wants it. Our office, if you have been up there, you've seen that we've got people working in the hallway and have had them working in the hallway for years. And so I think the victim advocate will work at a desk that is also shared by the data analyst who does some work from home. And there's an intern who sits there. Sometimes it's kind of just in the middle of the hallway in the least comfortable place, but we created an office out of a space that had some bookshelves and filing cabinets a few years ago that has some wainscoting and a door, but doesn't go up to the ceiling. The point is that we have been anxiously awaiting the Center of Government building, and we're hoping that that will happen in some fashion because court administration has been threatening to kick us out of the courthouse for years. They've been very patient, but you know, as a practical matter, it's somewhat embarrassing to see the accommodations that our office has, and we have people from the public in our office all the time. So you know, that's something that is a need that is, you know, nobody wants to hear it, but it's a critical need that is, you know, getting worse in terms of, you know, the infrastructure. The second thing is I've talked to some groups and some people about FLOC and you know, I have some thoughts about it. I definitely want to be part of the working group. I know I share many of the concerns that the community members do about the privacy of our information, and as much as the sheriff is careful with that information, you know, we still, you know, we have the concerns. But the worst thing that I do as part of my job is sit down with family members of a crime victim, someone who's been murdered, for example. I've had this conversation, and to tell them that we are not using all the tools that are available to us to try to solve the murder of their loved one is a very difficult conversation, and it's one that if I don't have to have that conversation, I will never miss having that again. You know, it's to say, oh, we could have a flock camera out, you know, that would have maybe caught the perpetrators on their way away from the scene of the crime, but we chose not to, as a community, have that resource. That's terrible. It's the worst, and it's, I think, you know, something we have to consider in our conversation about what we do. And maybe it's a different vendor, maybe it's a different system altogether, but to choose not to have a tool that can make a difference in serious cases is something that, you know, should be taken very seriously.
Thank you, Matt. Before we get into a discussion with Matt, we have 3 departments left. We have 5 resolutions. We have 2 items on the chair's report, and then it is 2:20. So please, if we can, questions, comments, let's keep them as brief and as condensed as possible. Anybody have any questions for Matt? Irene?
Yeah, is the grand jury room something that could be partitioned off to make temporary office space? Make the grand jury room itself a little smaller. We were down there for, yeah, I think we met with you down there, right?
Well, there's a little waiting area in that space that we have witnesses sit and wait in. And we might end up using that for the victim advocate. That means that she is on the basement floor and we're on the 3rd floor. And that job really involves communication with the attorneys, and, interaction with people in our office. So, that's not ideal.
Okay.
Anything else for Matt? All right, Matt. We are going to move over to DOER, the Department of Emergency Response Report. Mike Stiley.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Mike.
I wanted to start by thanking the new legislatures that joined us for a meet and greet last month. That was a really nice treat, and I thought it was a great opportunity to meet our entire leadership team. So even though I'm here by myself, we do have our entire leadership team on the call today. So if there's any questions that I can't answer, I'm confident they'll be able to answer them. And if by chance they can't, we'll make sure we get you the answer right away. So just a few things that I want to highlight that are not in this month's TomStat report is we did onboard our last 3 public safety security officers. They're training, they'll be training for a couple more weeks, but that means we are fully staffed. So thank you very much for your support for that program. We currently have 2 openings in our dispatch center, one as a result of the additional staffing that you provided us through the budget this year, and one because of recent retirement. So we're anticipating onboarding the 2 new dispatchers probably the beginning of April. We're really excited about a couple of the resolutions that are on the agenda today, and as we get to that point of the agenda, I'll have different members of our team speak to that. One in particular is going to be an EMS update from Joe Milliman. Although he did supply a really comprehensive summary of some new legislation, he is prepared to talk about that today. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Before we get into resolutions, are there any questions for Mike? All right, we'll jump right into it. Resolution, authorization to accept state funding year SFY 2025 Next Generation 911 NG 911 Grant, Department of Emergency Response DOER, ID 13892. Do we have a mover? Rachel moves, Irene seconds.
Okay, so I'll just have Jessica speak to this. She's put a lot of work into this grant. We're really excited about it. So Jessica.
So this grant was given to us by the state using state 911 surcharge money in order to upgrade and support any call handling equipment. We affectionately call it call handling equipment grant. On the advice of finance director, we have put in the resolution the acceptance for specific projects that we anticipate to be done in 2026. The remaining funds for this grant will be budgeted for in the subsequent grant years. It is a 5-year grant to the tune of $1.515 million.
Any questions? What? All those in favor, please raise your hand. That passes unanimous. Resolution number 2, authorization to accept 2026-27 CARES Up Grant, Department of Emergency Response, ID 13895. Do I have a mover? Veronica moves, Rachel seconds. Take it away.
Okay, so we're going to have Danielle speak to this. Danielle is our peer support coordinator, and this is part of our growing peer support program. We're really excited about this grant, so I'll turn it over to Danielle.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mike. I am really excited about this. It is going to help build up the resources for mental health for first responders, which can be very difficult because of the lack of culturally competent resources in the area. So this will enable us to bring training into the county, and then it will also enable us to send individuals to training outside of the county, the first of which is called Behind the Badge, that we will have some people going to out in Delaware, and it's going to enable us to support our first responders better than we've been able to in the past.
Any questions? Irene and then Lee.
Yeah, so during budget season, I remember there was a request for funding for a peer support program. Does this replace that, or what's the relationship of this to that?
Sure. So this is just a program within our peer support program. During the budget discussion, we were asking for a peer support coordinator. So currently Danielle does that as an ancillary responsibility with her current position as a data analyst. So we were moving to try to have, that to be a full-time position within DOER.
Thanks.
Lee.
I think Irene just asked the question I was going to in a different manner. So no additional staffing with this grant.
That's correct.
One thing I do want to bring up, this total grant is for $60,000. It is over the course of 2 years. So we're asking for the appropriation for 2026 for $30,000. And then the remaining $30,000 will be budgeted for appropriately in 2027.
Got a question for you on that, if it's all right, Chairman. This is a different manner in handling the grants than we have, and this probably belongs back at a budget committee discussion, but will you have to come back for an adjustment in each of these years, or does the grant acceptance pretty much lock this in so you don't have a difficulty coming back for round 2, 3, 4?
The idea is so that we don't have to come back for 2, 3, 4 rounds of transfers. The only difficulty is going to be if there is a delay in a project for some reason beyond our control, that we will have to use the term rollover is the one that comes to mind. But I don't want to use that term because we don't really allow rollover, but unspent grant funds being moved from this year to next year, say, which is the next resolution. We're trying to avoid that.
I know some of our legislators have been concerned about unfilled revenue lines moving along, and this probably is why we're structuring things a little differently now. And because I think there was probably a lack of understanding that a lot of these grants, especially the Homeland Security ones, can be up to 5 or more years by the time they go through the grant cycle. Not a one and done at all.
Right.
Thanks.
Any other questions? We ready to vote?
Can I just thank Danielle for doing this really important work?
All those in favor?
Pleasure.
Oh. That passes unanimously. All right, Mike, last one. Yep. Authorization to transfer unspent grant funds, Department of Emergency Response, DOER ID 13897.
So this particular grant.
One second. Veronica moves and Lee seconds. Okay.
Sorry about that. This particular grant is for the Technical Rescue and Urban Search and Rescue Grant. We put in for this grant and accepted it on behalf of the Ithaca Fire Department, who acts as our technical rescue team. They have spent a large portion of the equipment piece of the grant. The remaining is overtime and backfill for training on the grant. So they've spent, most of the $43,500 or most of the $23,500 that was for equipment. The remaining $20,000 and the $4,183 needs to be moved from 2025 funds to 2026 funds so that they can spend the rest of it. This is exactly what Lee was talking to about the restructuring, and instead of having to move unspent grant funds, we're trying to budget more appropriately. So,
questions? No? Ready to vote? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Mike, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, if time permitting, I'd just like to have Joe give an update on the new EMS legislation. I think it ties into what I saw underneath the chair's report. So
that is perfect.
Okay.
That's where I was going next.
Great. Joe?
So at the end of 2025, the governor signed the Rescue EMS bill into legislation. Although the bill is still relatively vague and we don't 100% know what it means for Tompkins County, it does deem EMS as an essential service. Up until the end of 2025, there was no legislation in New York State that said if you called 911 for an ambulance, that an ambulance would actually show up. It was all in good faith. So as of now, EMS is an essential service, and they are required to respond should somebody call for an ambulance, similar to fire and law enforcement. It does also state that EMS is to be provided to every person in New York State in a reliable manner. Again, we don't really know what a reliable manner is. We're still waiting on guidance from the Division of State EMS for further for guidance on what exactly that means. We are going to be required to work with the Central New York EMS region to develop a plan for Tompkins County. Again, we don't know what that plan is exactly. We're still waiting for the details on that. But we do know that we are going to have to evaluate our current EMS system in the county, identify any gaps in our service, and build an organizational structure that would help fulfill those gaps. Luckily for us, in the spring of 2025, the Department of Emergency Response already did a study and presented to the legislator on that. And then again, later in 2025, CGR was hired to come in and do another study, although we still do not have the report on that, so we're not really sure what their study is going to reveal. We do feel like the heavy lift of identifying those gaps and putting together a proposal has been done. It's just a matter of putting it into a format that the state would like to accept. The last part of the bill is that we're going to see a shift in EMS education. Again, we don't know what that looks like. They left that very vague, but it is evident that most likely the education is going to move from a local source to the Division of State EMS that's going to control all education across New York State. So some of the work that we've done to bring EMS education to Tompkins County may be backpedaled, and we may have to rely on the state a little bit more, but we are going to stay on top of that so we have answers as we move forward.
Thank you, Joe.
Well, the timing is perfect because one of the goals this year for public safety is countywide EMS and putting together a working group to figure out what that looks like, answer a few questions. Rachel is really excited in putting this together. I'm going to turn it over to her. She could talk about what she envisions the group looking like and what some of the goals would be.
Sure. So I think this just builds off of some of what Joe was saying, and I did notice that under the departmental goals, having an EMS program is one of the goals. And so my hope would be that the working group would just be in support of that. The working group wouldn't be kind of working on something separate to that. And one of the things I'm hoping we can do is create sort of a project management timeline for implementation of a countywide EMS program, and whether that's over 3 years or 5 years or however long it might be, to kind of understand who needs to do what at each stage, and when the legislature needs to come in and vote on something or approve something, so that as we then bring it back to the legislature, we can have a really clear explanation of what we want to do and how much it'll cost and all that.
Great. So are there folks from the legislature from this group that would be interested in Irene? We know you are. Rachel is going to chair the working group. So Irene, anybody else? Lee, Irene and Lee? And then I guess the next step might be to get with Mike and figure out who from his team, and then who else would need to be at the table, and go from there. All right, great. That's perfect.
Got a question?
Yeah.
Are you expecting that this will fold in with any of the activity that's going on at the council government level, or discussions that have been happening outside of here a little bit?
My hope is that it would, yeah. I think that at some point, kind of taking this and funneling it into a conversation would be helpful. And then at some point, those that are outside of this group would understand what it is that we're looking at doing and what that might look like for them, the finances and all of that stuff around it. So I think that this group would kind of answer quite a few questions for folks as we move forward.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, Mike, anything else? Any questions for Mike before he is off the hot seat? All right, Dan. Up next, we have the Department of Probation and Community Justice report. While Dan is making his way, I know meetings are going to go over our 2-hour time frame sometimes, but my goal, especially for department heads and staff, is for them to be able to plan their afternoons once a month from 1 to 3 and not get out of here at 3:30, 4 o'clock. they have a lot of work to do, and a lot of their staff are involved in these meetings. So if I move things along quickly, it's not because I don't want to hear from folks or there's not information. I would want to be respectful to the department heads and the departments and the work that they have to do. Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, thank you very much, Travis. Welcome, everyone. New members, I was very grateful to have met our new members. Thank you for coming over and touring the probation department. I think some very helpful things came out on our end for that. So an update, we're currently supervising about 50 family court involved cases, 498 criminal court cases. We're fully staffed at 32 individuals with our most recent hire starting the first week in February. Qualified probation officer that we were able to lure away from Schuyler County with her 3 years of experience. So it was nice to get an experienced officer. As far as department goals, I wanted to point out that my entire department attended a procedural justice training offered by DCJS at TC3 a few weeks ago. That's one of the goals, is to further the interests of procedural justice into our practices. So I was very thankful to my staff for all being able to attend. Last week had seven officers trained and certified as Glock armorers. I know that that may seem excessive for a department of our size when only 8 individuals will be carrying, but many of us do not have a lot of firearms experience, so it was really good for those individuals to learn how the firearm works, be able to troubleshoot those firearms when they are issued, and just to have that background knowledge. I think it gave us a lot of comfort for very little investment. Our pretrial grant, we received $73,000 more than we had budgeted for. Every county in the state got more funding for pretrial this year than they had in the previous years. It was based on a prorated basis. So we've submitted an application for how to spend that additional funding wherever we're able to cover some budgeted items that would have been at the cost of Tompkins County taxpayers will now be able to be covered through the grant. We're in the process of developing a study in conjunction with 2 professors from SUNY Albany and the DCJS Knowledge Bank into the equity indicator that we identified for our department, which is disproportionate negative outcomes for people of color. Very excited to get that grant proposal through to DCJS. They're willing to fund that with up to $50,000 of state funds. So we'll be able to do a deep dive into the last up to 15 years worth of probation outcomes. So that'll encompass prior to bail reform, COVID, and post bail reform. So we should gain some good insights from that. If the grant application is approved through the Knowledge Bank, that will obviously be brought to this body for vote and approval. Our county STSJP funding was approved in conjunction with DSS partners. So that I just received today. And a few other things. Wanted to thank Doer. John Halchek and I are meeting tomorrow through the EROC committee to potentially make some changes to how our probation field work is presented on CAD prior to the Department of Emergency Response being able to scramble our radio transmissions. We were very cognizant of not putting out people's information on there. So the way we called in and called out of our field work lacked some information that some law enforcement partners stated that they wish they could have. Now that everything is encrypted, we're going to look at doing that a little bit differently so that more information is available to any law enforcement partners that may need to respond if we were to have a crisis. And I wanted to thank John for his willingness to meet, as well as Chief Jerry Wright from Cuga Heights for raising the concern. Cognizant of time, I have a lot of things to discuss about day reporting. First of all, I want to thank and congratulate all of you for funding that program. It has been on the chopping block for about 2 years. I was always hesitant to invest much staff time, money into that program and make it what I always believed that it could be. your passing that last year has really allowed us to bring that program to new heights. We're pulling in partners from throughout the community, including Cornell Cooperative Extension. They're offering a mental health support group right now within our day reporting program. Met with Ty Basilius at Workforce, who's going to be bringing in some employment programming into that space, as well as offering 2 pre-employment training groups this month. Met with Tompkins County Mental Health Forensic Unit, and they are also interested in following that model, where they actually bring mental health treatment providers to the day reporting program and use that space to provide counseling sessions. Also to do warm handoffs with clients who may be reluctant to go for their initial appointment at a new space that can be intimidating for them. So in the interest of time, I know I've got 2 resolutions that need to be passed, but those are some of the more prominent updates from probation for the last 2 months.
Before we go into the resolutions, is there any questions or comments for Dan? My goodness. Resolution, reappropriation of pretrial grant for benefit of the pretrial program of all Tompkins County, ID 13898. Do I have a mover? Lee moves. Rachel seconds. Dan?
An update, this is just leftover funds from last year that we'd like to preserve in our budget for expenditures on pretrial matters. It also offers a lot of support to the day reporting program.
Questions for Dan? Ready to vote? All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Budget adjustment, reappropriation of Park Foundation grant for the benefit of the drug courts of Tompkins County, Department of Probation and Community Justice, 13900. Lee moves, Veronica seconds.
All right. This is not funding that comes to the probation department. It just channels through the probation department because we have the infrastructure accounting measures to provide assistance to the drug court. So it's starts out as $25,000 from the Park Foundation that helps support things with the drug court programs, and then they submit their billing through us, and we essentially pay those expenses through their grant funding. So this is leftover funds that the drug court would like to preserve in their budget.
Got your questions for Dan? No? Ready to vote? All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We are going to wrap up this portion with a signed counsel program report. Mr. Lance Salisbury.
Hello, everyone. I'll be fairly brief and quick with you this month. I think I say that every month, don't I? But nobody objects. I gave you all our case data, some historical data, the new data. The new data this month, nothing really of concern there. You know, sometimes in January, particularly with misdemeanors and stuff, numbers can bounce a little high because our case data reflects when people come to us and request assignment. When we see a new case. So sometimes people get charged over the holidays if they're not in jail. It can be January before they come to us, and that's why our January numbers sometimes will track a little higher, can be an anomaly, but nothing there to see. Normally, we start to get a few months in, I can start to see if there's any trend there that becomes concerning and alert you, kind of report what we're seeing, but nothing to report there. We do have several grants, renewals of grants at the state level coming back to us, so probably next month I'll be a little more involved in terms of talking about things. But I'll leave it there, see if anybody has any questions about what I sent out.
Any questions for Lance? There's no questions.
Yeah.
We're gonna go into the goals real quick. We already talked about establishing a working group for FLOC and countywide. One of our goals is to move along the new public safety building, jail expansion, renovation, establish a timeline and, get that moving forward. It is definitely a need. So along with the Center of Government, we'll be talking about this. Disaster resilience planning, Tompkins County Community Organization active in disaster, supporting this development, supporting the development of this newly formed group, working to ensure this group is covering all areas and reaching all communities within the county, planning for extreme weather, as well as epidemics, pandemics, coordination with DOER, Whole Health, DPS, planning for all stages of disaster, mitigation and planning, response, recovery. Before I go to the next one, any comments? No? County building security, support development of new county building security programs, transitional services and related human service needs, ensuring people who are being released from jail are connected with services before they're released, so there's not a lag in time in getting essential basic services, preparations for immigration enforcement, developing a plan how we can support community members who may be subject to federal immigration enforcement, understand what the local public safety infrastructure will be and what it can't be, trainings for legislators and staff, communications to the public, probation, the give officers, talking about the weapons program. We just got an update about the gun safety course. And then the continued conversation about how do we house younger folks in the jail, like what do we do with them, and trying to figure out that process. Anybody want to add, talk about the goals? I'll send these out to everybody so y'all have them and they'll go in the minutes. No conversation? All right. Do any committee members have any reports or anything they want to add to the conversation? All right, so we're not adjourned. We are going to have a conversation with more advice of counsel. The only folks that are needed for that is the legislators, Maury, and the Sheriff's Department. Thank you all for coming.
Would adjourn first.
Yes.
And then
Oh, I would adjourn?
Yes.
So we are adjourned. And then we're going to have this conversation.
It's not considered an executive session.
I know, it's advice of counsel, which is